Aboro Aboye. So this morning on my way into the shrine, I had a really interesting experience. It seemed minor at first, but then it really exploded in my mind as a real opportunity for understanding. I was coming down one of the major streets, and I was doing about 35 or so miles per hour, and there was a young girl about 25 yards ahead of me, and we were approaching the intersection at the same time. And so there was no crosswalk, but she wanted to cross the street. So she started to cross the street, and she had to run, and I had to slow down a little bit in order for her to make it across the street. Only problem was that she was pushing a baby in a stroller. And when I looked in my rearview mirror, there were no cars behind me. And when I looked ahead of me at oncoming traffic, there were no cars coming. There was nobody chasing her. And then I looked and I thought, why are you in such a hurry to get across the street? Why are you going to jeopardize your life and the life of your child just to cross the street? And instantly it became a metaphor for what I consider an insidious and very destructive trend, which people are calling American Orisha. American Ifa, right? And I'm hearing this conversation come from lots of different sectors, but I want to focus on African Americans in particular because that's what I know best. For a number of years, I've heard our people talking about a distinctly African American practice, and I listened, fairly for a number of years, but then I'm over about 3 years or so, I've been asking people, okay, if there is such a thing as African American Ifa, African American Orisha, you need to define African American for me. What specific cultural practices do you consider integral to our identity, that they have to be, represented? These things cannot be erased or muted in our practice of Orisha. What are those? And over the years, if I've asked a question 20 times, I can tell you without hesitation, I have never gotten a response. Nobody can define the cultural practices or cultural institutions or social, structures that are distinctly African American that we have to have and are somehow in jeopardy by practicing Orisha lifestyle in earnest, by really learning the practice from wherever we've been initiated and trained. Right? So what it ends up being is that, a lot of people are using this hologram of American Orisha as a shield to hide behind and criticize. They can hide behind this imaginary shield of, I'm going to somehow protect my identity, so I can, at the same time, throw stones at what the Cubans are doing, and throw stones at what the Nigerians are doing, and throw stones at, right? But in reality, I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't have a real understanding of what it is I'm trying to protect. This is something that is one of the negative results or consequences of the civil rights movement, where we defined ourselves as a protest people. All we're doing is protesting, right? We're not promoting an economic plan or a political plan or a social plan or a spiritual plan within the community. We're just saying we're against segregation. We're against, the idea of being separate but equal. We're against that. But what are we for? We don't know. And that is carried over into our practice of Orisha lifestyle. What are we for? We don't know. And so we want to just be for everything. We want to be for anything. And it ends up being nothing. You need to focus. You need to do your homework, okay? If you're going to be a proponent of African American culture, you need to know what it means to be African American. What exactly does it mean? If you're a Kentucky African American, you need to know what that means and why it's different from being a Texas African American. Why being a Florida African American is different from being a Nebraska African American. Being a Vermont brother is different from being a California brother. But why exactly? What are the rites of passage, the approaches, the ethos, the psychology, what do you do differently that make you unique? You need to do your homework and know yourself to that level. You need to do your homework on the practice. If you're trained in the Cuban system or the Brazilian system or the Nigerian system or the Trinidadian system, you need to know that system. You need to know the fullness of that system. Okay? Before you start, criticizing and saying that, oh, these people are bad because they do something that I don't like. Well, you might find the exact same practice in another dimension of your own tradition. But if you haven't done your homework enough, you won't know. Okay? So in order to really create a higher level of mental and emotional flexibility and just accuracy in your speech, you need to know what you're talking about. It's very important, because for people who know, when you start making these broad generalizations that contradict where you say you come from, you lose credibility and you sound crazy. All right? So do your homework. Do your homework. Now, I have a slight bias, and I'm on for the sake of transparency, I am trained as a counselor and a human service professional, and I've dedicated 20 years of my life to studying the mind of our people as it relates to Orisha lifestyle. Now, what do I mean by that? I want to show you something that I started writing in 1995. Now, this is the Yoruba Enrichment Village. This draft is from 1995. Okay, and was finalized in 1996. Okay, so just so you know, it's like, why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because, to me, there is a much higher level of specificity that we need to aspire to if we're going to really talk about cultural evolution in a responsible way. We can't keep speaking in these broad general terms and expect to be taken seriously, number one, and also we can't do these things and expect for anyone to be able to act based on what we're saying. We want to create change at the root of it, but if you want people to change, you got to be specific, you got to be clear, you have to focus on something and not just speak in general terms. All right, now Ifa reinforces this in one verse of Ogundaika, where Ogundaika essentially tells us how Orunmila woke up and he had on the hat of specialization. He wore the pants of specialization. He looked with the gaze of specialization. This was the one that, the iteration of Orunmila coming into the world to bring skill, to bring specified skill. He said that, 25 were going to be hunters, and 25 were going to be sculptors, and 25 were going to be priests, and 25 were going to prepare the food for the priest. I mean, it goes down and lays out like 8 different professions for men and 8 different professions for women and how they complement one another. It explains to us exactly how there is a role and a practice and a position for everybody in the civilization. And the better we all know those roles and play those roles, the more effective the whole community will be. And so that's what it means to live the medicine. That is the work that we are dedicating ourselves to through the Orisha Lifestyle Academy. I urge everyone who is serious about social justice, everybody who is serious about equity, everybody who is serious about environmental concerns, everybody who is serious about just promoting high quality practice within Orisha lifestyle and doing something that is authentic and really addresses the needs of our local reality. Please visit OrishaLifestyle.com, check out the programs and activities, and get involved. This is what it is to live the medicine. Aboru, aboye, aboshishe.